Hi, my name is Sarah Hodge, and I'm the curator of the Herman Teapot National Inland Waterways Library. If you haven't already, make sure you've watched the introductory tour video in part 1 on the Educational Series webpage. In this video, we'll discuss what primary and secondary sources are and how you can access them using our digital library. Primary sources are documents, images, or artifacts that provide a first-hand account of a place, event, or person in history. Researchers use primary sources as tools to understand specific moments in time. They are the original objects and documents from the time period or subject the researcher is studying. Examples include letters, diaries, newspaper reports, speeches, photographs, and video and audio recordings. You may not realize it, but when you study history in school, what you read or hear is often informed by primary sources. Secondary sources are images, documents, or artifacts that interpret or analyze an event, place, or person in history. They are removed from the subject being studied. The creator of secondary sources often quotes or draws from primary sources. Examples include books, encyclopedias, documentaries, and journal articles. Let's play a game. I'm going to show you an image from our collection. I want you to say out loud if it's a primary or secondary source. First up, we have a letter between brothers discussing the 1801 election between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. The letter is dated February 17, 1801. Is this a primary or secondary source? Primary. The letter is from the same time as its subject, the 1801 election. The author shares his thoughts and opinions about events going on around him, providing a first-hand account of his experience at the time. Next is a book published in 2000 on the history of railroads. Is this a primary or secondary source? Secondary. This book uses primary sources and other secondary sources to explore a topic. Although the author may or may not have a personal connection to railroads, he's not writing about his experiences. That makes this a secondary source. Next, we have a St. Louis visitor guide from 1867. It describes the things to see and do in the city at that time. Is this a primary or secondary source? Primary. This guide describes what the city has to offer at the time it's written, so it's a first-hand account. Here's a painting by James Godwin Scott. It was painted in 1964 and depicts the construction of Busch Stadium garage. Busch Stadium was completed in 1966. Is this a primary or secondary source? Primary. This painting was created in the same time period it depicts, so it's a primary source. Finally, here's an exhibition catalog from the St. Louis Mercantile Library. This book features images of the pieces on display in the exhibit. The author provides interpretation and analysis. Is this a primary or secondary source? Secondary. Although this book contains images of primary sources, it's written by an author removed from the subject who provides analysis and interpretation of the pieces. Okay, so we talked about what primary and secondary sources are, but how do you find them? You may not realize it, but anyone can access primary and secondary sources to enhance their research. Even you, especially you. Not only will it add depth to your writing, but it will make it way more fun. Searching for and analyzing primary sources can lead you on adventures through history as you examine exquisite tapestries in museums, scroll through 100-year-old digitized photographs online, or sift through dusty leather-bound books in libraries whose historic architecture, wood-paneled walls, and chandeliers make you feel like you're on the set of a movie. So let's start with how you access secondary sources. They're a little more common, so can be easier to find. We just learned secondary sources are books, encyclopedias, and articles. I know this may seem obvious, but humor me. What's a great place to find lots of books? In a library. You can use online catalogs to search the collections of a particular library, like the St. Louis County Library or the St. Louis Mercantile Library. Or you can use online search engines like WorldCat or Mobius to search multiple libraries at once. WorldCat searches the collections of hundreds of libraries from around the world with just one click. Academic journal articles are also great secondary sources for more advanced researchers. They provide readers with cutting-edge research in their field. They can be accessed using academic indexes and databases that sort and organize publications. Many libraries and schools provide public access to these powerful search engines. Primary sources are a little trickier to access. Museums, libraries, and archives collect and preserve primary sources. They make them accessible to the public through exhibitions, presentations, publications, and research appointments. These institutions work hard to make their collections available to as many people as possible. They have to balance this access with the preservation and care of the objects, though. One of the best ways to do this is through a digital library. Digital libraries allow you to search and sort collections that have been uploaded to a web application. Many institutions have digital libraries, though not all. We have an excellent digital library here at the Mercantile. We actively upload new items and information to it nearly every day. So now, I want to take a few minutes to show you how to access and use our digital library. You'll need this information later when you get to the assignment portion of this program. There are several ways you can get to our digital library. I think the easiest way is from our website's homepage. You can access our homepage at www.umsl.edu/mercantile. From here, if you look on the right side of the page, you will see a button labeled Digital Library. If you click it, it will take you straight to the home search page of our digital library. From this page, if you scroll down, you will see several ways to browse the collection, including by decade, by subject, or by item type. In the top right-hand corner of this page, you'll see a search box. You can enter keyword searches here. For example, if I search Mississippi River, it will bring up all the items we have tagged as related to the river. Or you can enter a name, like Ruth Ferris, and it will bring up all of the items we have tagged to that particular person. After you have conducted a search, you can refine it using the suggested search terms on the left bar. You'll see things like type of object, topic, geographic area, or time period. Each thing you click adds a filter narrowing your search results. For example, I searched Mississippi River to get to this screen. Now I'm going to narrow it by painting, and then I'll narrow it again by, let's say, river steamers. When we finally select an item to look at, we can see information about it, like the title, author, time period, if known, related subjects, and a brief description with relevant information. If we scroll back up, you'll see that you can zoom in on the source using these buttons or the dial on your mouse. There are several tabs across the top of the screen. One of them takes us back to the home page. The About tab gives you general information about the collection. There is also a tab labeled Collections. This allows you to browse the various organized collections of the library. The Advanced tab allows you to customize and fine-tune a search to get the most relevant results. You can choose to search different fields in the object's record, like title, description, geographic area, or date. You can also search multiple fields at once. And you can use modifiers like and or not. For example, if you want to find hotels in St. Louis and do a keyword search for hotels, you'll have to look through a lot of irrelevant hits for hotels in other cities. But if you search hotels and use a second search here and search for St. Louis, you'll be able to get the most out of your search and really fine-tune what comes up and make sure it's relevant to what you're looking for. So that's how to use our digital library in a nutshell. The best way to get familiar with it is to just poke around and play with it. Run some searches and use the various filters to control your search results. You may have noticed we have only talked about how you access primary sources on digital libraries. But libraries, museums, and archives usually only have a sliver of their collections available online. Boxes and boxes sit in storage rooms waiting to be scanned or photographed. So how can you access those sources? Librarians and archivists develop resources called finding aids. These documents describe what's in a particular collection, where it came from, its significance, where it is located, and how it's organized. They're kind of like a map to the archive. Researchers, like you, can skim finding aids online to see if a collection will help answer their questions. Then they can contact that institution and make an appointment to go examine it in person. As you flex and grow your research skills, maybe one day you'll find yourself at the St. Louis Mercantile Library examining 200-year-old letters to help answer your research questions. I want to add one last important note. It is important to keep in mind primary sources are usually written by a single person. They only tell us what that person believes to be true. Often what isn't mentioned in the writing can be just as important as what is. If you read a letter from a European fur trader describing an indigenous village, you only learn how that fur trader perceived that village. His biases and other limitations, like language barriers, influence that perception. Because that fur trader didn't share the culture of that native village, he may have interpreted them as ignorant or unrefined, even though they had complex languages, art, and spiritual beliefs he just didn't understand. Similarly, a slave owner may describe a slave refusing to work as lazy, when in reality, the enslaved person may have been protesting their unjust captivity. Historians and researchers must constantly force themselves to question and look beyond what they read, to both accept and reject individual viewpoints, and to acknowledge not only the bias of the writer, but also our own. So in the first video in part 1, you toured the St. Louis Mercantile Library and learned about what we do and the type of collections we house. Now in this video, you've learned what primary and secondary sources are and how to access them using our digital library. In the next video, in part 3, you'll explore how you can use primary sources to answer historical research questions. You'll see there are several different subject areas you can choose from. If you're doing this program with your school, make sure you pick the one assigned to you by your teacher. I hope you're enjoying this program so far. Thank you for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at shodge@umsl.edu.